But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Big mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. So we ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. We are a peaceful people, struggle is we struggle, and we don't look for trouble, just ask around. But when outside faces from foreign places talk about taking over, we ain't backing down. We ain't giving up no mountains, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. This land is all I know. We gonna make it somehow. We will bend like a bow and never break. Our fathers came here and they lived and died here, and we ain't moving nowhere. Big mistake. Cause we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs to we. Not one blue sake, not one rice grain, not one rice, not a blade of grass. We love the open country of the Rupununi and the Essequibo, daytime or night. Though we may criticize it, this is our home, we love it, and we need to keep it. We have that right. So we ain't giving up no mountain, we ain't giving up no tree, we ain't giving up no river that belongs.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another day of debates in the second Speakers National Youth Debating Competition. On Tuesday, we witnessed intense, fierce, extremely competitive debating. The West Bank Young Achievers Youth Group and the Queenstown Youth Group faced off, with the West Bank Young Achievers Youth Group emerging the winner by judges by 0.1 of a point. 0.1 of a point. So congratulations to all of the groups who have participated so far. And today, I can assure you, you are going to be in for another very competitive debate. This morning is the seventh debate in this first round of our 2022 debating competition. Our esteemed judges for today are Ms. Indrani Chandrapal, the Chief Judge. She's the chairperson of the Women and Gender Equality Commission and was elected president of the Inter-American Commission on Women, serving between 2001 and 2003. She has been in Parliament for 27 years and a two-term Minister of Government. During that time, she served as Minister of Human Services and Social Security and chaired many parliamentary committees. Our next judge is Mr. Nias Suban, a past student of Bishop's High School, the University of Guyana, Faculty of Natural Sciences. Nias served as a member of Parliament from 1997 to 2001. Mr. Suban has been in the media for over 30 years in many capacities, including television and radio hosting. He had the iconic morning show for 10 years, Guyana Today. He's currently the Chief Executive Officer acting of the National Communications Network. Mr. Suban has over 35 years in the field of theater, filmmaking. He's been an actor, director, producer, writer. Our third judge this morning is Ms. Monet Garnett Christopher, the Chief Administrative Officer of Parliament. She started her career at Queen's College as an economics teacher. Thereafter, joined the Parliament office as the Expenditure, Planning and Management Analyst. She holds a master's degree in business administration and a Bachelor of Social Science degree in economics from the University of Guyana. No stranger to public speaking, Ms. Garnett Christopher has been a member of the Toastmasters Club and has been involved in adjudicating competitions for a number of years. She is a returning judge from 2021. Today's proposing group is Angoy's Avenue Youth Friendly Space Youth Group, a group launched in 2006 which seeks to involve young people in the designing and implementation of services and activities for their core group. These services include counseling, mentorship, literacy and numeracy training, life skills, problem solving, recreation, sport, IT, preparing young people for job readiness and career guidance. They are represented today by Ms. Latoya Bethune, 18 years old, from Rosal Town. The second speaker, Kimberly Smith, 20 years old, from Quarantine, Berbice, and Mr. Delroy Marks, 21 years old, from Rose Hall Town. The opposing team is the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement Youth Group, last year's winner. So, Angoy's Avenue, you're up against the best from last year. Last year's winner, the group consists of members who are passionate about community development programs and volunteering. The group, established in January 2020, consists of young people between the ages of 19 and 29. Like most of the groups, they are formed to empower young people, to maneuver social issues, to foster togetherness, cooperation, develop their skills, engage in servicing, counseling, social activities, and in competition. Their first speaker will be Yavendra Ramsarup, 28 years old from industry. Second speaker, Ruben Lewis, 21 years old from Coldingen. And third speaker, Asakia Rahim, 25 years old from Namprel. Our mood this morning is combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. I now declare this debate open and call on the first speaker for the proposition, Ms. Latoya Bechun from Angois Avenue Youth Friendly Space Youth Group, to make her presentation. And that youth group is presenting directly from the Parliament chamber. Latoya, the floor is yours.
Sagacious judges, members of the opposition, intelligent audience, observant timekeeper, good morning. We strongly support the mood which states that, and I quote, combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. As the first speaker, I, Latoya Betchen, will define the key terms in the mood as well as provide substantial evidence to prove to you that combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. Our second speaker will focus on the personal, social, and moral responsibilities individuals have in combating COVID-19. Our third speaker will cement our stance and so doing shut down our opponent's argument by providing further evidence to support our claim. Honorable judges, the key terms in the mood. Combating, taking actions to reduce or prevent something bad or undesirable. OxfordLanguages.com. COVID-19, an infectious disease thought to spread from person to person through droplets released when an infected person coughs, sneezes, or talks. World Health Organization. Individual. According to the Collins Dictionary, individual is defined as referring to a person or thing rather than to a large group. Responsibility. Dictionary.com defines responsibility as a state or fact of being responsible, answerable, or accountable for something within one's power, management, or control. Zamot as it stands is saying, every person is responsible for taking actions to prevent or reduce the spread of COVID-19. Intelligent audience, if you as an individual do not take responsibility for your own well-being and fight your own battles, who do you expect to do it for you? Yes, there will be measures put into place by the government, but what good are these measures if one does not adhere to them? Distinguished judges, an argument published on January 7, 2020, in a book titled The Hidden Face of Rights Towards the Politics of Responsibility by Catherine Schickett, turns out to be particularly relevant to the coronavirus pandemic. It highlighted, and I quote, even if all governments were taking actions but individuals do not do their share by staying at home and washing their hands, the crisis would not be averted. Wise opponents, do we expect the government to wear our masks for us? Do we expect them to sanitize our hands or our homes? Most definitely not. We have to pull our socks up and take responsibility for our own health. After all, it is said that our health is in our hands. Wise opponents, need I remind you the words of the Minister of Health, Honorable Dr. Frank Anthony, as he reiterated the fact that Guyanese have a responsibility to help stop the spread of COVID-19 in the country? Distinguished judges, appearing on the Government in Focus televised interview on August 15, 2020, the Minister of Health noted that, and I quote, even if the new PPPC government is doing their part in protecting the population, the onus still lies with each individual to ensure they are not exposed, end quote. Further, erudite judges, an article posted on February 23, 2022, by the County Council of Rutland, the Director of Health stated that, and I quote, individual choices and actions will be key to managing COVID-19 in the long run. Hear ye, noble speaker of this prudent assembly, the wise words of Australian Prime Minister, Honorable Scott Morrison, as he noted that, and I quote, Australia must embrace a culture of responsibility that emphasizes the onus, the lie on individual in taking responsible protective actions against COVID-19, rather than a responsibility of culture and control and mandates by the government. End quote. Further, erudite judges, the Ministry of Sustainability and Environment in Singapore made it clear in a July 2021 article that individual responsibility is more important and, in fact, the most effective means in combating COVID-19. Thus, every single person has to take responsibility for their own action. In Guyanese proverbs term, every fowl got feed on his own crop, meaning everybody has to learn and find out what is good for him or herself, thus taking individual responsibility in combating COVID-19. Call it common sense or call it self-leadership, because combating COVID-19 is, I repeat, is an individual responsibility. I thank you.
That was Ms. Latoya Bethune from Angoy's Avenue Youth Friendly Space Youth Group, the first speaker for the proposition. And now for the first speaker from the opposition, Mr. Yavendra Ramsarup from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement Youth Group. Mr. Ramsarup, the floor is yours.
Honorable Speaker, esteemed judges, learned colleagues, pleasant morning to all. We, the members of the opposition, stand well grounded as we disagree with the move combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. Permit me to define the key terms used in the move. The Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines combatant as to strive to reduce or eliminate, and it defines individual as a single person as distinguished from a group. The Oxford Dictionary defines COVID as an infectious disease caused by the coronavirus. The Cambridge Dictionary defines responsibility as something that is your job or duty to deal with. We therefore interpret the move as it is a duty of a single person as compared to a group to reduce or eliminate the infectious disease COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, the World Coronavirus Statistics report an astounding 6.3 million deaths with a total of 506 million cases worldwide presently. I, the first speaker of the opposition, will enlighten you on how international organizations and government worldwide combat the deadly COVID-19. Our second speaker will further elaborate on the regional response against the virus, whilst our third speaker will zoom in on our international institutions' success over the pandemic. Mr. Speaker, the World Health Organization has been mandated by a series of World Health Assembly resolutions to provide member states with guidance and technical support regarding COVID-19. As stipulated by the World Health Assembly, Act 56, Chapter 19, Prevention and Control Influenza Pandemics and Annual Epidemics. Act 60, Chapter 28, Strengthening Pandemic Influenza Preparedness, Share of influenza virus and access to vaccine and other benefits. Sagacious judges, WHO statistics dated November 2020 reveal that the virus has spread to a resounding 54 million confirmed cases, deaths of over 1 million persons, and hundreds of millions suspected instances around the world. People worldwide are now struggling and reacting to a global health disaster and financial crisis by the COVID-19 pandemic. Did the Lord opposition consider the law of supply and demand and the ripple effect it has on the individuals combating COVID-19, which no single person has control over? Therefore, the WHO calls on industries and governments to increase manufacture by 40% to meet the rising global demand. Mr. Speaker, on April 2022, the New York Times reported the United States of America individualistic approach isn't working and is among the worst performers as fighting the COVID-19. In some places, such as the Dakotas, mounting COVID-19 prevention as an individual responsibility, which became the core structure of the fight against COVID-19. South Dakota's leaders preach personal responsibility and refuse to require masks, much less strict measures. Governor Christine Yom said they gave citizens up-to-date science, facts, and data, and then trusted them to make the best decisions for themselves and loved ones. Mr. Speaker, since the beginning of the pandemic, at least 1 in 4 residents has been infected in the Dakotas, which exceeds 200,000 reported cases, more than 3,000 deaths. Mr. Speaker, on the other hand, New Zealand report only 600 deaths with a total of population of 5.8 million. Germany reports 2,673 deaths with a total population of 83 million, dated October 2020. Prime Minister of New Zealand imposed the most significant lockdown in the country's history, warning them to act now or risk the virus taking hold, as it has elsewhere. After Germany announced strict lockdown measures, Chancellor warned these are not recommendations by the state, but they are rules have to be followed for our collective interest. Mr. Speaker, while sectors of society involved in a pandemic preparedness and response, the government is a natural leader and overall coordinator and communication effort. The proof was presented. We are all living examples for future generations to learn from. We did not muzzle this dreadful disease alone. Therefore, I reiterated that combating COVID-19 is not an individual responsibility. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsarup from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement. Today, we are debating combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility, and we have Angus Avenue Youth Group and Cummings Lodge Youth Group facing off. We've had 2 speakers so far, and now I call on Ms. Kimberly Smith from the Angus Avenue Youth Friendly Space Youth Group to make her presentation, the second speaker for the proposition. Kimberly?
A pleasant morning to everyone. During the COVID-19 pandemic, I, Kimberly Smith, am honored to propose the mood this morning, and I quote, "Combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility." End of quote. As the second speaker of my team, I will be exemplifying the personal, social, and moral responsibilities that each individual has in order to combat COVID-19. World-renowned philosopher and physician John Locke stated that everyone has the right to their life. Additionally, philanthropist and human rights activist John Rockefeller enunciated that every right implies a responsibility. Most honorable judges, since each individual has the right to their life, is it not their individual responsibility to protect said life from harm? Whether it is by the wearing of one's mask or the sanitization of one's hands, each individual must take personal initiative to protect themselves from the virus. Psychologist Michael Fries expressed in his personal initiative theory that goals, whatever they might be, require a self-starting approach. So while our nation aspires to eradicate this heinous virus called COVID-19, that is not possible unless each individual take initiative to do so. At a COVID-19 task force briefing on June 29, 2020, Dr. Anthony Fauci, a physician scientist and immunologist serving as the chief medical advisor to the President of the United States of America, expressed that while we have the personal responsibility to protect ourselves from COVID-19, we also have a moral and social responsibility to protect others. The great Immanuel Kant, one of the pivotal thinkers of the Enlightenment era, described moral responsibilities as the ethical obligations we as individuals have in order to positively contribute to society. In addition, the psychology fandom defines social responsibility as the ethical obligations in order to eliminate irresponsible and unethical behavior that might bring harm to society as well as its people. As individuals during the COVID-19 pandemic, we need to remember that our actions and the lack thereof not only negatively impact us, but also the people around us. The opposing team might want to argue that in order to combat COVID-19, we need a collective approach. But today I stand before you and ask the question, what is collectivism without individualism? The answer is very simple. It is non-existent. According to the United Nations data as of April 12, 2022, Guyana has a population of 793,279. However, only 363,000 of which are fully vaccinated. Perspicuous judges, that is only 46.1% of the entire population. Guyanese proverb says, and I quote, "You can carry a horse to the well, but you can't force it for drink," end of quote. Similarly, a collective group of scientists can create a vaccine that promotes immunization, which they did. And the government of our country can ensure that those vaccines are readily available to us, which they did. But ultimately, it is still each individual responsibility to get vaccinated. During a COVID-19 briefing on April 1st, 2021, the Minister of Health, Honorable Dr. Frank Anthony, disclosed that despite getting vaccinated, individuals can still contract COVID-19. Hence, the wearing of one's mask, the sanitization of one's hands, social distancing, and even self-quarantining when necessary are all very essential in order for us to combat the virus. Need I mention or add that all of these are individual responsibility? So I urge each of you, for the sake of all of our lives, let us fulfill our roles and combat COVID-19. After all, it is an individual responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kimberly. And now for the second speaker from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement Youth Group, Mr. Ruben Lewis. Ruben, the floor is yours.
All protocols observed. I, Ruben Lewis, the second speaker of the antagonist side. Today I will reinforce the flame that has been lit by my colleague. By adding more wood to the fire, by refuting the mood, combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, may I add to the equation that I am a staunch supporter of self-independent move. But there's a saying among Guyanese elders, hard is good, does eat green dunks. Permit me to elaborate on such statement, Mr. Speaker. If you don't want to heed advice or warning, you must bear the consequences. And of such consequences, I will guide you through the pastures of some goat-eating scenarios. According to World Meter Info, Brazil, the famous country known for its carnival, has been devastated by a whopping 663,000 deaths and 30 million cases. Brazil president was highly criticized not only by local officials, but by foreign for his poor handling of the coronavirus in the country, leading to a high COVID death toll. Now, the country's former health minister has revealed that the president, Mr. Bolsonaro, had ignored repeated warnings by health experts, the opposition, even his cabinet members, especially when he was provided with figures. Brazilian president, Mr. Mandetta further stated, and I quote, "I warned him systematically with projections that 180,000 Brazilians could die by the end of the year if the medical body restrictions were not implemented." A piece of advice carelessly ignored by the president. Mr. Speaker, esteemed judges and audience, this is a detrimental result of a one-man army trying to fight a losing battle. Permit me once more, Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, to guide you through a pasture where they are sheep guided by shepherds. According to the status, Barbados comes in with merely 386 deaths, 65,000 cases with a population of 287,000. As with everything, Mr. Speaker, it begins with leadership. At the helm was a woman who led with distinction, the Honorable Maya Motley, Chair of the Caribbean Community, and the Prime Minister of Barbados was proactive and impressive in her harnessing of the region's technical expertise and resources to the region benefit as well as Barbados. This resulted in effective and timely communication, buttressed by carefully crafted message from reliable sources to the population of the region. All nations have been affected by COVID, Mr. Speaker. The absence of regional leadership and a coordinated response is taking a toll everywhere, but particularly on the most vulnerable nation. This crisis has made us all aware of how interconnected our systems are. The region's containment of this unrelenting virus is due in large measures to the effective teamwork of many agencies, not an individual responsibility of Tom, Dick, or Harry, but by the teamwork of many agencies, as CARICOM, PAHO, and Caribbean Public Health Agency and many more executed an excellent containment strategy. The sterling efforts combined with poised approach by all their tireless team, not a one-man stitchy band, is nothing short of flawless. Kudos to all concerned for sharing this critical information, responsible for saving many lives and so avoiding overwhelming our healthcare system that proved more efficient and organized to cope with this pandemic than many larger, more powerful nations who have resorted to leaving COVID-19 to individuals. Once again, Mr. Speaker, honorable judges, want me the opportunity to enlighten the proposing team that even in the Bible, God said it is not good for man to be alone. Hence, combating COVID-19 should not be an individual responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ruben. That's Ruben Lewis from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement Youth Group. And now to introduce the third speaker for the proposition, Angois Avenue Youth Friendly Space Youth Group, Mr. Delroy Marks. Delroy, you have the floor.
Honorable Speaker, erudite judges, members of the opposition, my fellow team members, I, Delroy Marks, rise in this noble house as the third speaker to support my team dismiss the fallacies and misconceptions that has been displayed thus far by the opposition. Please permit me to enlighten you the flaws in believing in the government collective actions to combat COVID-19 can be effective without individuals taking their responsibility. Honorable judges, law insider defines legal responsibility as a measure used to describe the extent to which a person can be held accountable for committing an offense. For example, in this case, not adhering to the COVID-19 guidelines. Honorable judges, according to the government of Guyana, dated October 30th, 2021, and I state, the official gazette states that any person who fails to comply with these measures under Section 152 of the Public Health Ordinance is liable of a summary under the section. For example, number 14 of the said gazette, it speaks to this legality. For example, wearing a face mask, washing your hands, maintaining your social distancing, and take your vaccine. Failure to comply with these measures, more specifically, not wearing your mask in public space, will require a fine. And even those who haven't taken the vaccination would have been banned from public spaces. Prudent judges, as the coronavirus continues its global rampage, claiming millions alive across the world, each individual must take the individual responsibility to combat this deadly virus. According to Guyana Chronicles, dated October 11, 2021, and I quote, the government of Guyana invested more than $2 billion for vaccination efforts. Along with the government, received external support from bilateral partners such as China, India, and even Colombia for personal protective equipment, ventilators, vaccine, among others. This opposition here this morning believes in order to combat COVID-19, we need a collective approach. But haven't we seen the effect of the guidelines being removed? Honorable Speaker, honorable judges, non-governmental organization and the resources to take forefront to combating COVID-19. My team not playing a blind eye to the government's effort to maintain the The legal order strongly believes in individual responsibility to follow these gazetted protocols. However, despite the government putting all necessary systems in place, it is still individual responsibility to follow these set protocols. Prudent judges. According to the Ministry of Health, there has been 63,340 infection and 1,226 COVID-19 related deaths in our country since the pandemic has begun. This brings me to ask one question. Since the government removed all of these guidelines, whose responsibility is it? This answer will definitely be one's responsibility to protect themselves from this virus. Honorable Speaker, erudite judges, members of the opposition, my fellow team members, Guyanese viewers across the world. Due to this pandemic, we have new individual responsibility. Someday in the future, our action will bring new value based on how you and I survive this pandemic. Moreover, none of us here, or those who are watching or wash their hands on legal or moral responsibility. Honorable Speaker, honorable judges, wear your masks, take your vaccine, and wash your hands. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Marks. You've made your mark with that mask and sanitizer and your vaccine book. And now for the third speaker from the opposition, Ms. Asaskia Rahim from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement Youth Group. Asaskia, you may commence.
All protocols observed. I rise to further contribute to my team's argument that combating COVID-19 is not an individual responsibility. Large member of the proposition, do you believe we were able to reduce daily COVID-19 cases from 1,100 in January to a minimum of 9 cases daily as of April 2022 with the ideology of individual responsibility? Honorable judges, a Guyana Chronicle article on June 2020 reported local NGOs collaborated in the fight against COVID-19, bring relief to the less fortunate and slow the spread of the deadly COVID-19 virus by distributing food hampers and sanitization items. Mr. Speaker, the founder of the Green Path Foundation, Roger Yearwood, noted that he collaborated with Living Colors Foundation to donate to several food hampers and essential products to persons during the current COVID-19 crisis. He noted that the exercise was able to bring relief to an estimated 4,000 persons in the epidemic. In a UNICEF article, March 2022 reads, community and religious leaders join healthcare workers to tackle vaccine uncertainty in Region 2. Mr. Speaker, UNICEF Deputy Representative Akhtar said that engagement at the community level is critical to reaching individuals who have not taken the step to protect themselves from COVID-19. Mr. Speaker, Tracy Isles, a community healthcare worker based at the Abraham Zoll Health Post, said she had encountered many persons who were hesitant to take the COVID-19 vaccine for various reasons. Similarly, segment was expressed by medics Leota Huber from Queenstown in Kaito News article in August 2021, who identified social media as a major source of misinformation about COVID-19 and encouraged everybody to take their vaccine, beat COVID-19, get back to a normal life, practice social distancing, wear face masks, and practice hand washing. Mr. Suisa Medics Huber further stated, and I quote, all people have a saying, it is better to be safe than sorry. Mr. Speaker, with the reference of the Public Health Ordinance Act, Chapter 145, the government of Guyana had also implemented policies to help combat COVID-19. For instance, the official gazette dated July 2021 stated, patrons would be required to be vaccinated and have in their possession an official identification document and their vaccine card effective from August 2021 before entering public buildings. Hence, the government implemented such policy to get citizens to be vaccinated and minimize the spread of the virus. Mr. Speaker, another step the government took to help reduce The spread of COVID-19 is to enforce curfew within the country and close hotspots, that is restaurants, bar, creek, concerts, etc., that are high risk in spreading the virus. Mr. Speaker, on August 4, 2021, President Irfan Ali has issued a passionate appeal for citizens to adhere to the guidelines put in place to prevent the spread of COVID-19, saying he would support stiffer penalties for those who continue to flout the guidelines. Mr. Speaker, April 13, 2021, scores of persons were arrested at several bars for breaching national curfew and for being in space that violate gas measures which limit occupants at bars and restaurants to 40% capacity. I hereby import a member of the proposition to join us in this collaborative effort in combating COVID-19 and terminate the false claim that this is an individual responsibility before the entire humanity is wiped out. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Saskia, from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement Youth Group. And there you have it, our 6 presenters today in the 7th debate of the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition 2022. They are debating the mood combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. And to tell you about the rules of the competition, let me introduce our Public Relations Officer, Mr. Yannick December. To gather their thoughts and come back with their rebuttals. Yannick?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The rules of the competition are as follows. Each team must consist of only 3 members, all from the same youth group. Failure to comply will result in the disqualification of the team. Once a team has started the competition, no member shall be replaced. The first speaker will be the first speaker of the proposition, followed by the first speaker of the opposition, and shall alternate in this order. The time allotted for each speaker are as follows. First speaker, 5 minutes. Second speaker, 4 minutes. Third speaker, 4 minutes. And for the rebuttal, 5 minutes. The rebuttal will be done by the first speaker on each team, in the order of opposing, then proposing. No new arguments or material shall be introduced into the rebuttal. 10 points will be deducted for introduction of new arguments. A bell will be rung first to indicate that the speaker should commence. The second bell will indicate that 1 minute is remaining, and there will be a final bell when the time has elapsed. 5 points will be deducted from each speaker who does not adhere to the allotted time. In the event of technical difficulties, a speaker may be allotted additional time. This is at the discretion of the judges. Speakers may refer to notes but should not read them. 5 points will be deducted from any speaker who reads a prepared speech. Points will be awarded for reasoning and logic, originality, relevance, mechanics, articulation, attitude to opponent, development of argument, and cohesion. And finally, the judges' decisions are final. Those are your rules for this year's Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition. Best of luck to our participants. Mr. Speaker.
The rules of the competition. To remind you, today it's the 7th debate of the Speaker's National Youth Debating Competition. And today's debates, the 7th and the 8th, will round off the first round of the competition. Our judges today are Ms. Indrani Chandrapal, 27 years an MP, 2 terms a minister, Mr. Niaz Subhan, cultural activist, radio and television personality, an icon in the media in our country, and Ms. Monette Christopher Garnett, the Chief administrative officer of our parliament, and a debater toastmaster in her own right. The teams debated the moot. Combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. The teams, as I said, are now regrouping, gathering their thoughts, and to be presenting the rebuttals in a few minutes' time. Let's go to the internet for some of the comments on today's presentation. Mr. Jason Benjamin said, great performance by both teams. John Vast also commend both teams on a job well done. Randy Diochan likes the use of the local proverbs. Leon Beaton, watching from Port Kaituma, the competition is watching. And we have Valestes Edwards, I think, is a regular viewer now, also commending the use of our proverbs. Desmond likes Kimberly and Latoya. And Jason again says, one love. So those are our comments. We have a number of persons joining the viewing, and today I hear a lot of numbers clicking on calculators, so I'm sure it's going to be another tough decision. That bell alerts us that it's time for the rebuttals. And the rebuttal will begin with Mr. Yavendra Ramsuru from the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement Youth Group. Yavendra, you have the floor.
Good morning once again. I stand before you once again to reject the misguided information emitted from the proposition by reiterating the evidence-based argument by my team, which provide that combating COVID-19 is not an individual responsibility. Honorable Speaker, esteemed judges, Lord colleagues, attentive audience, my third speaker would have voiced a testimony of a qualified health worker who say that social media is a main source of misguided information. Mr. Speaker, we are currently being broadcast live on several social media platforms. Therefore, we should get it right. The proposition, second speaker would have mentioned about human rights, but they did fail to realize that it was the government who had to implement the guidelines that that persons had to follow. Also, the second speaker spoke reference about U.S. leaders. Must I remind you that it was the U.S. leaders who preached about individual responsibility, and they had an outbreak. They had the worst combating statistics worldwide. Mr. Speaker, they also spoke about collectivism and with individualism. But also we must remember that an individual cannot work in isolation. They have to work together. Government, the proposition also contradicted itself by saying that government, which we would have mentioned, provided vaccines for individuals. Can individuals by themselves get these vaccines? No, of course, it was the government who had to get these vaccines for individuals. The second speaker said that you can take a horse to the well, but you cannot make it drink. Of course, but when the guidelines were set out there, how many persons follow the guidelines? Of course, my third speaker would have mentioned about the newspaper referencing where the government had to send the task force to break up parties and in some cases put some persons before the court to reinforce these guidelines. Of course, the entire argument by the proposition keep referencing about what we would have spoken about a holistic approach. They even mention about the government receiving aid from India, Colombia, and other countries, which of course is based on our argument. We cannot fight the coronavirus alone. Of course, we need help from other bodies, international support. Therefore, the government put measurements in place that will guide individuals. Individuals did not put systems in place. It's the government who had to put these systems in place. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ramsaroop. And now for the proposition. Rebuttal, we have Ms. Latoya Bethune from Angois Avenue, Youth Friendly Space Youth Group. Latoya.
This thought-provoking issue, whether or not combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility, has baffled the minds of many today. However, honorable judges, the prudent members of the proposition would have made mention of a few invalid flaws. Allow me to expose them. To begin with, the first speaker made mention that individual measures did not work because of how the option was placed for persons to wear masks, and then went on to state the amount of death. But let's face it, as my speech would have stated, with reference to Catching Chicken, the book, right? If individuals do not take responsibility and wash their hands, sanitize their homes, wear their masks, whatever help we get from overseas or what's not, it's pointless. My second speaker made it clear. Yes, they receive vaccines from different countries and what's not, but what good are these vaccines if myself as an individual do not go and take it? If you yourself as an individual do not go and take it, if you yourself as an individual do not wear your mask, who is going to wear it for you? Definitely not the government. Authoritative judges. The second speaker mentioned Brazil about what could happen if persons in charge does not put certain measures into place. Allow me to ask these questions again. What good are these measures if one does not adhere to them? The second speaker also spoke of the importance of leadership. I agree. However, leadership can never be effective if individuals do not take personal initiatives to follow. My grandmother always liked to say, a captain is only as good as his crew. Similarly, the government made many efforts to combat COVID-19. However, their efforts cannot be effective if individuals do not make the conscious decision to fulfill their personal, moral, and social responsibilities to combat this deadly virus. Again, what is collectivism without individualism? Non-existent. The third speaker also would have mentioned about the Gazette, how it was made official in July. But need I remind you, research clearly showed, according to Guyana Chronicles, that the Gazette was actually made official in October. The third speaker talked about all the distributions and made mention of sanitizing materials, how persons of religious groups and what's not came together and donated sanitizers and so on. But if you take the sanitizer and just leave it there, who's going to sanitize your hands for you? You're still at risk. You have to take the individual initiative to pick up the sanitizer, sanitize your hands. Take the initiative to pick up your mask, put it on, and wear it. I thank you. Combating COVID-19, let me remind you, is an individual responsibility.
That was Latoya Bethune from the Angois Avenue Youth Friendly Space Youth Group for the proposition debating the moot. Combating COVID-19 is an individual responsibility. Opposing today was last year's winner of the competition, the Cummings Lodge Youth Group. So there you have it. Our judges will now be busy with their tabulation to come up with the winner for this morning's competition. I remind you that last week we had the competition so keen that the winning group was ahead of the opposing group by just 0.1 of a point. And that was the Grove Youth Group over the West Bank Young Achievers Youth Group by 0.1 of a point. And clearly from this morning's presentations by the two groups here, the Angois Avenue Youth Friendly Space, who was the proposition, and the Cummings Lodge Youth Movement, the opposition, it's going to be very, very keen, and the judges will have an extremely difficult time separating the two groups. And who are these judges? We have Ms. Monette Christopher Garnett, who is the Chief Administrative Officer of Parliament. She started her career at Queen's College as an economics teacher and then joined the Parliament office as the expenditure planning and management analyst too. She holds a master's degree in business administration, a Bachelor of Social Sciences degree from the University of Guyana, a Toastmaster herself. She has coached, evaluated, judged many other debating competitions. Our next judge is the popular media personality, Mr. Niaz Suban, a past student of Bishop's High School and University of Guyana Faculty of Natural Sciences. Niaz was a former member of Parliament. He also has 30 years in the media, hosting for 10 years the Guyana Today program. And also he has been in the field of theater, filmmaking, as an activist. He has been an actor, director, producer, and writer. And our chief judge today, Ms. Indrani Chandrapal. Ms. Chandrapal has served in Parliament for 27 years and 2 terms as the Minister of Human Services and Social Security. She has chaired many parliamentary committee meetings and is the current chairperson of the Women and Gender Equality Commission. So those are our judges. We have a number of persons joining us online also. Nkosi Jupiter, one of our debaters, is on, still watching, giving his congratulations to both teams. Greg Ganesh, watching from Toronto. Thanks, Greg. Again, congrats to both teams. Calvin Roberts has a best speaker, but I don't want to influence the judges, so I won't mention the name. Leon Beaton comes back, and he is giving lots of fire to the rebuttals. Lorena Schumann also giving her congratulations to both teams. So clearly, the overwhelming response online is fire, clap hands, and congratulations to both teams. So I can see what is going to happen when the judges are ready for us. And I think they are ready. So let us start with some comments from Judge Christopher Garnett.
Thank you, sir.
Garnett Christopher, sorry.
Thank you, sir. Good morning to both teams. Good morning to our viewers online. Good morning to staff. The session this morning was very informative. I must say there were very good reasoning in your arguments. With regard to confidence and self-esteem, I must say I was really overwhelmed this morning. You brought it on. All right, in terms of your pitch, you were very good. In terms of voice modulation, that was excellent too. We had really outstanding articulation from the first speaker. There, I must commend you and everyone else. In terms of your supporting information, I think you did well there too. You had enough information to support the points you want to tell us. And Some of your sentences, however, I think they were a little too long. Just take your time, ensure that you pause when it's necessary so that we can be able to understand you clearly. In terms of your pronunciation, I think you should really pay attention to your TH, right? I think you were a little off there, both teams, but nevertheless, congratulations, great job. I was very exciting. I was looking at my documents, and when the first speaker started to speak, she captured my attention right away. All right, so congratulations, great job to both teams again, and thank you.
Judge Subhan?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good morning again to everyone. You know, I thought I knew Guyanese sayings, but there were so many articulated here this morning, and I have to try to keep up. You know, I watched an IPL match only the other day, and I think it's one of the best in the tournament. It went back and forth, and you couldn't predict the winner. And I think my score sheet reflects that. It was just 3 points separating in the end that separated the two teams on my score sheet, and it says a lot. I won't want to repeat what my colleague Judge said, but the articulation was good. I like the research that was done. I must say, though, there were times when I heard just a statement, whether you were opposing or proposing. I just heard a statement. I didn't hear much at times to back the statement up, but then later on in the debate, I hear something different that caused me to now to say yes, that the point has been supported. So maybe it speaks a little bit to structuring as you go forward. But I want to commend the team for being here, and you really brought it on. It reminds me of the movie Bring It On. You know, you really brought it on. So, but no, this was extremely informative. And for me, I was a debater once, and this is a mood I would not want to be debating in, because both can be right. Right? We have an individual responsibility, and we have a collective responsibility, and I don't think one can function without the other. And in that context, I would not want to be a participant in this debate, other than being a judge. Difficult to judge, very difficult to judge. But in the end, a decision has been made, and I want to congratulate you again. Thank you.
And Chief Judge, Ms. Chandrapal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To our two teams here this morning, I would concur with the sentiments that have been expressed by my two previous colleagues. I think it was a good performance by both of you. And yes, it is a difficult place to be in when both teams had such powerful arguments. I think the research was excellent. Some of you have really done well, and we need to congratulate you. I believe it's the way to go in the future, to ensure that you have the background information. And I also like the fact that you use proverbs profusely. I've never heard it before in any of the debates that we've had in the way it was brought out today. However, I want to say that the COVID has restricted us really to evaluate people. You know, when you see people, we feel the energy. You see a lot of the stuff, but when they are not in the vicinity of where you are, sometimes that's a disadvantage. But nonetheless, the voices, the mannerisms, and the development of the points and the articulation are all there. But it would be useful. I would have thought that since we're just Cummings Lodge is not so far away, it would have been great if we could have had them, you know, live. So it is something that we need to consider for the future. Maybe a little guidance will help. Yes, the voice modulation by some were really excellent, and I really am happy with that. And self-esteem and confidence, all of that emerge in some cases. So having said that, let me move to the winner of today's debate. First, the team. The proposing team is 261.3, and the opposing team is 253.3. Okay? It's a collective responsibility. It's your work. We have just done the analysis. And the best debate, I think we also are having a split again. The last time it was 2 against 1. And we believe that Ms. Latoya Betu is the best debater. And let me take this opportunity on behalf of our judges here to thank you all for a good job and want to encourage you in whatever you do to try to do your very best. I thank you.
Thank you very much, judges. Congratulations to all of the debaters this morning. Our winner from last year is now going to prepare for next year, as they have been eliminated from the competition by proverbs. And so I'm reminding of 3 proverbs right now. They say someone did the extra mile and they won, literally the extra mile. And you know the old saying, close to church, far from God, and close to school, late for school. So they did the extra mile. They were the farther person group away. They are here and they emerged the winner. Congratulations to everyone. Latoya, the person online, did recognize you as the best speaker. Congratulations again, and we're going to be back at 2 p.m. to close off round 1 of this 2002 Speakers National Youth Debating Competition. Thank you.